Hey everybody, Chris, Four Directions Bushcraft. I'm going to real quick go over some of the really useful tips that help me be successful with my bow drill. Stay tuned. Okay, first let's start with the bow itself. The bow can be made out of anything. I find paracord is the best, but it can be made out of anything as well. Your string. This, I normally tie a slip knot on, just like you're doing your snares, but it doesn't matter really. Just tie a knot, and then a regular knot, half hitch or whatever you want on this side as well. I pull it just taut enough to tie each knot. I don't leave any space in between or slack, because I know when I go to put my spindle in, this paracord will stretch, and it'll stretch to the exact tightness that I want. So that's the bow. Alright, moving on. Spindle. The spindle, this one I just saved because it's getting a little too short. Depending on your height, you want the spindle to be longer. I like my spindles to be like hang 10 in length. So as you can tell, this one is trash now. The smaller they get, the more wobbly they get. You can't really keep them straight. And the less control you have over them. This is a new spindle that I'm gonna make. If you notice, it's thumb thick and it's much longer than hang 10. Well, this one's about hang 10. So that's good. By the time I sharpen this end and make this end dull, like I'll show you next, it'll be perfect size. First, what I'm going to do is take all the bark off of this. I like to start mine out of white pine. There's several different woods that are good though. You can do white pine, cottonwood, you can do cedar, balsam fir, do your homework. But white pine I find is the best for me. Alright everybody, got the spindle carved up, really pointed on this side for less friction. Less friction on the handheld. We'll go over that in a minute. Blunt on this side for more friction on the fireboard itself. More friction. Now, this doesn't have to be 100% carved all the way down, because it'll take form as I try to make my coal. All these knife marks I left in here on purpose. It's not smooth. That way my bow string has a little something to grasp on. That's the tricks of the spindle. Let's go over the tricks of the handboard. This is my old one. You can see how deep that's getting. The deeper that gets, the more friction on that end. I don't want all that friction. I want all the friction to be located on the fireboard. So this needs to be sharp and at a point. So I've made a new one. I have yet to use this, so you can see I just carved a little hole in there, or a little divot. I like this handheld board to be of a harder wood than my spindle. So I know the inner part of this cedar, this red cedar, is a little bit harder than my white pine. That way it doesn't wear. The handheld can be made out of many different things. Stone, a mussel, seashell. Let's move along to the hearthboard. The hearthboard I make also out of white pine. I try to match up my woods. White pine, especially for the spindle and hearthboard. The hearthboard, I just want about thumb thick as well. Maybe a little thicker if I have to. If I think it's going to be difficult as far as weather, I might make it a little thicker. That way I have some drill time in order to make that coal. In this case, I have just a little over thumb thick. So that'll be good. Smooth this end down, smooth that end down so it'll sit on the ground. This will be the end I'm drilling through. Now that I have this cut or shaved down, I'm just going to put a divot in the middle of this. My divot that I carve, I just want it deep enough and round enough so that my spindle doesn't slip out of it. The placement of my divot on this particular piece is in the middle, but slightly, I know that it's going to be slightly towards me, so it's not directly in the middle. It's right there where my finger is, so it's leaning on this edge, which is going to be towards me. That way, when I go to burn it burns in fine, but when I go to cut my notch, I don't have to cut all the way into the board. And you'll see what I mean. It saves me cutting time. Birch bark goes down to protect my board from the ground and also to catch my dust. You can use a leaf or anything flat. Made my divot a little bigger because my spindle top is a little bigger. One more trick about the handheld. You want to put something green in here or spit in there or make it wet. There's two things that does. Causes less friction on the end of your spindle and also lubricates it. A sassafras leaf works best because it has natural gel in it. When the sassafras leaf has to be green. Now we'll burn in the hearth board. Your foot goes as close to the divot as you can. That way you can give stability to your board. It's good to put your body in kind of a three-point stance, with one being my back foot, the other being my knee, and the other being this foot going down. I want to hold the spindle against my shin. Therefore, having the board right next to my foot here, having the divot right next to my foot, puts everything in line, and I rest this hand right up next to my my shin. Always put your spindle up off the ground. Any little moisture counts. The dust left over, I'll put right onto my piece of birch bark. Now I'll carve my notch. Lots of details about the notch. The notch, as you noticed, and as I said before, is slightly towards me. This is where I like my notch, facing me. Some people face it out. I like it facing in because I can keep a closer eye on it when it fills up with dust as I'm going. When I cut my notch, I want to line my blade up in the center, and I want to kind of draw a line. So I'm just going to draw a line straight down like that. Go 1/4 of an inch to the left and 1/4 of an inch to the right, cut my V-notch out, and I only go 1/4 of an inch into the divot itself. If I go halfway, there's not enough friction on the board to bring that up to heat, to bring that up to temperature. If I go too far out, there's too much friction and not enough oxygen. Your notch is very important to allow oxygen to your coal. Too far in, you won't get enough friction. Too far out, not enough oxygen. You have to find that happy medium, and all it takes is practice. That's what it looks like right before I cut it. You can tell I went 1/4 of an inch over from the center line and 1/4 of an inch over, and I'll just cut a V out of that. My notch only goes 1/4 of an inch in. It's cut wide enough to give me some oxygen to my coal. I tapered out the bottom. This gives my coal a base to sit on and build. It's not just a column. Those are the tricks that I've learned to cut your notch. My spindle from my burnout, I need to reshave this down into a point to cut down on friction. You should do that after every use. Also tighten your string after every use. So because I have to shave this down after every use, that's why I like to leave my spindle a little longer, because you shave it down all the time. Now let's try to make a coal. You want to start with light pressure until you get some smoke build up. Then you want to increase your pressure. You want to add a little oxygen. And you can tell now that it's smoking on its own. You have a coal. That's what it looks like when it smokes on its own, obviously. All I did was add a little oxygen with my hand like this. Some people blow on it. Blowing on it, you know, it's going to, you have moisture in your breath, so blowing on it's going to add a little moisture to it, so you got to keep that in mind. At this point, I have plenty of time to do whatever I want to do. I can just let it sit there and smolder. So thanks for joining me. I tried to make this video short, just showing you the tricks, the main detailed tricks that really helped me from not always getting a coal to almost always getting a coal. Now it's never guaranteed. The humidity plays a factor. Rain, obviously, humidity, snow. You know, even like I said, your breath. If you're breathing on it, it'll play a factor. The woods that you use will play a factor. How wet they are, how dead they are. They have to be dead standing. This is all dead standing white pine that I use. That's a it can't be, you can't do this with green. Now I have seen a couple people do it with green wood, but I've never toyed with that. Only dead standing. So thanks for watching. Thanks for your views, your comments, and support. I hope this was interesting. Check out 4directionsbushcraft.com, October the 1st. I'll have some products on there that I think are really interesting, really, you know, kind of new to the bushcraft community. They're my own products, and I'm really happy about them. October the 1st, 4directionsbushcraft.com. And thanks for your views, your comments, and support. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Have fun out there. That's the main thing.